Welcome back, everybody. This is the second hour of the Adam Messer Show, and you are listening to us live here on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Halloween 2019 special edition episode with the Savannah Zombie Novel series author, Joshua Vasquez.
That's me.
Hey, man, how's it going?
It's going, man.
I am excited to have you here. This has been it's been a lot of fun, I think, the first hour or so.
Yeah.
First half hour, we were just playing catch up because we don't see each other like maybe.
The first half hour could have been a phone call between me and you.
Could have been.
We decided to do it on the air because that's how we roll.
Yeah, I mean, I always love having a chance to hang out with you and, talk about author stuff and talk about writing and all. So we last left off right before the break. We last left off talking about you writing with your friend.
Yeah.
And this being set up like a movie. And we were talking about like back, 13 years ago?
Yep.
14 years ago, something like that?
13 years ago, 2006.
Yeah, we were talking about how vastly the resources have changed just because of the smartphone.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was like, okay, like I was asking you, how did you even find out about how to write a script? And you're like, I got a book.
Yeah. From a bookstore.
Wasn't a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Wasn't like a, whatever. So can you tell us a little bit more about the rest of that, like, process? Yeah. So you had high school. Fast forward to when you published the first
book. So I published the first book in 2013, October, because I figured, Halloween, be a good time to release a zombie book. Walking Dead comes back on in October. So I think it was like the very beginning of October. So it's supposed to kind of like coincide with like Walking Dead, Halloween, and all that stuff. And so basically what happened is the Christmas before, my wife gave me a Amazon Kindle for Christmas, which at the time, like, I was like kind of selfishly like really bummed out because at the time I really wanted an iPad. I wanted it bad. Yeah. And so I got this Kindle and like it was not as cool, But I love books. I love reading and all that. And there's a ton of free books that you can get on there. Yeah. And so, I got some like the classics and stuff like that. So like there's a ton of like free zombie books, really cheap, 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99 zombie books on there. So I started reading some of these and I'm like, these are not good. And not to like downplay like other people's works. It's just that they weren't like there was like grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, just they weren't put together well.
Formatted.
Yeah, it's like the story might have kind of been there. There were some weak points in some spots and some stories. But it just wasn't like, it wasn't put together well. Like, this is not how books read that you go and buy from a store. Yeah. Why, like, well, I mean, I get that it's free, but still, like, it should have some kind of quality to it. Yeah. And so, like, I was like, I had this zombie story in my mind from the movie that I wanted to make. I had written out like the first kind of couple of chapters. So I took that and I kind of started writing it, and I had another friend at the time. His name is Avery. He was actually in the church youth band that I was kind of like heading up at the time. So I sent him these couple of chapters, and Avery, kind of real strong ADHD. So you either had his attention or you didn't. So like I started sending him a couple of the first chapter. He's like, dude, you got to write more. Like, send me another chapter. And I was like, well, if I'm keeping his attention, like, I feel like I can probably keep anybody's attention. Yeah. So I kept writing chapters, sending to him, and like until finally I had this book. And then at the time I was like, well, I could put it out here on the Amazon Kindle, which was still like relatively kind of a new thing. It was. Yeah. I wouldn't say like I was like one of the like first ones or pioneers in it at all, but I definitely kind of was still. It was like, I think
You were one of the first people that I ever met in real life that had published a book. Yeah, I remember picking your brain, like, "Hey, man, how do you do this and how do you do that?" And
it was kind of like at the beginning or maybe like the middle of like the ebook gold rush, which was like when people just started like putting everything
Because I
out
met you in
there.
like 2014, so that's almost over 5 years now.
Yeah.
And self-publishing was still relatively new. I mean, I think it'd been around for like 5 years or so. I know there's some people out there now that are like, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years or whatever. I don't know when Amazon first said you could self-publish.
Yeah.
But it changed the publishing game.
It did.
It's like, okay, you just opened up entry level for everybody to be able to put it out there.
And that's exactly what it is. It made it accessible to everybody.
And it opened up the world of micro press publishers, self-publishers. I mean, like if you put your own book out, you're a publisher.
Yeah.
You know, self-published or not, it doesn't matter. You did a thing, you made it happen, you put it out there to the world, and you said, here it is.
Yeah.
You know, that takes a lot of courage. Now, I totally agree. If you're going to put your work out there, put your best work out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, like you were talking earlier about reading some of the stuff that you've done, and you're like, wow, did I write that?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I get that sometimes. And you're like, okay, you know, and then there's other times where I read that, I'm like, did I write that?
Yeah.
You know, like kind of cringy. And, but, you know, we have taste.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes you put something out there and you know it's not exactly like you want it to be, but you're like, okay, well, this is as polished as I can get now. And then, you know, a year or 2 years later, you have new skill sets.
Yeah.
You know, but do you go back and change that? And I say
that's
no.
the thing. That's the thing that I struggled with so bad. I wanted to go back, and there's a couple of months this past year.
Yeah.
It's probably like half a year worth of time where I really wanted to go back and just restructure the first book.
Yeah.
Just because like I was reading the stuff that I'd written for book 3, and I'm like, this is just like leaps and bounds better than what I wrote in book 1. And I just felt like it's like the way I was looking at it was a response, like a reader's like response to it, as in like, why would I want to slog through book 1 to go read book 3, which is the authors tell me is better.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it reflects on us as artists and creators. You know, we get better.
Yeah.
If we're working on it, like you don't want to be in the same spot over and over again. You don't want to, you know. I'll be honest with you. There's a reason why actors stop doing roles after a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. They're like, I'm tired of doing this role. I'm not growing as an actor.
Yeah.
I can play a certain role to the T and be perfected with the role. You know, I've perfected every aspect of the role. Am I growing?
Yeah, I mean, look at Robert Downey Jr., who's played Iron Man for 10 years.
Yeah, or Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, now he's going on to
playing Wolverine.
Well, yeah, he's being Dr. Dolittle, but yeah, it's something different than Iron Man.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think that was a great career move for both of them.
Yeah.
You know, Hugh. I was watching this interview with Howard Stern and Hugh Jackman. Hugh had never heard of the X-Men or Wolverine before auditioning for.
Yeah. I've heard that he actually thought Wolverine was based on a wolf.
Animal. Yeah, he thought it was a wolf-like animal.
He watched videos like on wolves for it.
And you know, it's kind of weird because it worked.
Yeah,
you know, kind of gave the animalistic. But you know, you grow. And the same thing with our writing.
Yeah.
You know, I have been professionally publishing as a journalist, as a freelance journalist.
Yeah.
And as a fiction writer, it's a new game.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole new ball game. So, you know, for me, self-publishing is different, and having to learn a lot of those, you know, tools of the trade. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why this year I was like, okay, I had some moderate success with the Blood Thrasher, The Devil's in the Metal, and I was like, okay, what's next? How do I keep moving forward with this story? You know?
Yeah.
And no, you know, I say it wasn't a bestseller. I think it got like to number 2 in its category, like on 1 hour reads or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, to say it's a bestseller, like that's a fine line there.
It's one of those things that you learn as you kind of grow as an author. You're like, so everybody's kind of technically a bestseller at one point.
It depends.
It's really,
if they make the top of the list, they make the top of the list. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you made a lot of money. Like I didn't make a lot of money off of the book.
Yeah, especially like on Amazon. Like there's so many subcategories that you can be a number 1 bestseller in.
I've seen people doing that too, which is kind of cheeky.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, I purposely made it this category because there are like 1 or 2 books in that category.
Yeah.
Like, that's cheeky.
Yeah.
Now
I've done that on a couple of them. Like on the short story.
Yeah.
On the short story, I really narrowed it down to a couple of categories. Not because I wanted to get the bestseller in that category, but just because there were less fish in that pond.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that with because Amazon gives you like 2 categories to switch it with.
Yeah.
So I only did it with like one of them. So I think like it's either the CJ story or is it the North Pole zombie story? I can't remember. It's one of the short ones. It's like horror, like it's like fiction horror. United States, Southern States, like it's like this weird long category. But the only reason I put it in there is because it does make it that smaller or that bigger fish in a smaller pond.
And I get that. I'm talking about folks that they just straight up try to play the system.
Yeah.
And I mean for that, you're a Southern writer.
Yeah.
And so I understand kind of wanting to kind of specifically categorize it. I'm talking about like, people that are just trying to scam the system or trying to, whatever, just so they can say, hey, I got this bestseller thing.
Which is a big thing that happened too with like ebooks and stuff like that. A lot of people tried to game the system, and that's when ebooks like they kind of like it was like the bubble.
Yeah.
And the bubble popped, and
that's what I'm
eventually
about.
kind of like it died back down to like the people that are actually doing it for most of the right reasons.
When I was talking about having some moderate success, it wasn't the getting like the number 2.
Yeah.
It was the feedback that I got from people, other authors and readers.
Yeah.
And then, there's been a lot of stuff that's spawned since then because of that one little book.
Yeah.
Interviews and things like that. And it's just a whole different world. But I was like, okay, so I wrote this. I was a pantser, writing as a pantser.
Yeah.
I had this idea that actually, when you were on the show, you remember we were leaving out of here and Sebastian's like, Dad, why don't you write about a heavy metal vampire band? That was like, you were literally on the show that day.
Yeah.
I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd episode of the show, and
it could have been either one because I feel like I was on the 2nd and 3rd episode.
You were. I interviewed you, and then you came back and interviewed me.
Yeah.
So, and then Sebastian had that idea, and I was like, oh yeah, I like that, because I had been doing like kind of like a historical fiction with Savannah Coven.
Yeah.
Before that, like little short microfiction type things, just on my blog, on the Savannah Coven website or whatever, which since has changed to Savannah Vampire Novel Series.
Yeah.
And that, I think, going back to what you were talking about, we change and we adapt and we adopt new things.
Mm-hmm.
So like our old stuff is gonna be like, oh man, you know, sometimes you're like, what was I thinking? And then other times you're gonna be like, I did that?
Yeah.
That was me. you know, type thing.
Basically the piece that I made myself with the book one and wanted to rewrite it and redo it and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, well, if it ever goes to like a different format, whether it's like graphic novel or, you know, like screenplay for either a TV series or a movie, that's when I'll make the changes.
Tolkien did that.
Yeah.
Tolkien revised The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and he added things, and you know, so yeah, that makes sense. You know, well, speaking of writing, you know, I know I've been talking about Rachel Byrne a lot. Yeah. But she did this little writing prompt, and she said, you know, just hey, somebody share, you know, whatever. So I wrote this short story last night, a little flash fiction. Mm-hmm. I want to read it.
Go ahead,
I want to share it.
Knock it out. It's the Adam Messer Show.
Well, you know, I just want to share this with you because I think this shows a little bit of progression with my writing. Yeah. And you actually have read my stuff. You're like one of the people that actually reads my stuff. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's called Mom's Spaghetti. Mom used to always say, look out for traffic, eat my veggies, do my homework, take out the trash. You know, typical mom stuff. She always kept the house clean, made us lunches for school, and made my favorite meat sauce for spaghetti. Years later, I was cooking a spaghetti dinner, but I could never quite get it the same as Mom. I called Mom to ask her the secret ingredient that she used for her meat sauce, but she would always be coy with me, giggling and saying and joking around that it was for her to know and for me to find out. We would laugh, and I told her that I would get her to tell me the secret ingredient one day. Several years later, Mom was killed by a drunk driver who ran her over while she was walking through a crosswalk. We were devastated. Had to have a closed casket funeral. While I was sorting through her affairs, I picked up an old cast iron pot that she used to cook the meat sauce in. I I started digging around, and I found a mason jar named marked marinara. Okay, now all I need is some meat. I walked over to the chest freezer and opened it up. As I dig through the layers of frozen peas and carrots, I noticed a large black plastic bag that looked like it had a bowling ball in it. I grabbed the bag and set it on the counter. As I opened the black trash bag, there were several layers of plastic wrap, so I grabbed a pair of scissors. After I made the first cut, a frozen tuft of black matted hair poked out at me. To my shock and horror, there was a frozen head of a young man staring back at me. After the police poured over the entire house, they discovered a hidden room with old clothes, shoes, belts, and pocket wares like wallets and watches. The detective handed me an envelope she found addressed to me. Dear Rachel, as you know by now, I've held a dark secret for a long time. I'd hoped to stop after you grew up, but I just could not find anything that would match the flavor from my meat sauce. Now that you know my secret ingredient, I love you and hope that you may one day forgive me for the monster I became. Love, Mom.
Nice.
What'd you think?
Yeah, that's pretty gross, dude.
It's a little flash fiction horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wrote this for my friend Rachel last night, and I was like, I wrote this for you, and I was gonna put it out there, but I was like, this would be kind of a neat thing to talk about on the radio.
Yeah.
And when I read it, Sebastian was the first person I read it to. And what did you think, Sebastian, when you heard it?
I thought she was just cooking with like decayed meat, like bad meat, and just I didn't expect it was gonna be a head.
Yeah. I was like, as soon as you said black plastic bag, I was like, yeah, there's definitely some kind of body part in there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I was like,
yeah, but
special meat sauce that just doesn't.
I know, right? It's like mom's spaghetti. It's like who doesn't love mom's spaghetti?
M&M.
Yeah. So that's one of those things, man. But I think as authors and writers, we grow.
Yeah.
We change, we adapt, we evolve, and okay. I've got. Let me do something real quick. Bastin, can you go get that adapter?
Yeah.
So I've got a special announcement here.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if this would happen or not, so I didn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But Brian Ralph from Daybreak actually is going to be available to talk.
Okay, cool.
So let me ask you a question, Josh, so you can talk, and I can call Brian real quick.
That's fine.
Or actually, can you talk for a minute and be my little co-host for a second?
Can you give me something to talk about?
Yeah, talk about the Author Expo and like what you got.
All right.
You do your podcast all the time. Talk about that.
Okay, I know, but I normally have something planned out. Yeah. So, Author Expo, I'm excited about it because it's coming up in 2 weeks now. So. The 9th. Yeah, November 9th. So like Adam is we've talked about this entire episode. I've kind of been there with him since day one of starting a lot of these things and just kind of been gung ho about getting some stuff started. Especially here in Savannah. I just feel like this is just such the perfect city for this. And I know we have the Savannah book festival, but that's kind of catered more towards the bigger, big name authors coming from New York and all sorts of stuff, the actual traditionally published authors. But yeah, that's one of the things that drew me to Adam's stuff is he wants to do things that are kind of inclusive for everybody, for authors that are just starting off, or people that have been in this game for years now. Stella Price, she's been to a few of the events and all that. She's just been just knocking it out of the park for a long time. So yeah, I'm really excited about this Author Expo. Just one, because it's for me as an author, it just gets me out and gets me connected to other people. Where for me, just personally, it's real easy to get kind of a hermit mode, Obi-Wan in the desert, and just kind of forget to branch out a little bit. So the stuff that Adam puts together gets me out of my cocoon, gets me to flex my little butterfly wings. And it's fun to meet people. That's one of the things I love about doing the Books and Brews is Books and Brews. I spend half the time or majority of the time just talking to people. I just happened to kind of be at the bar ordering something the last time I was there, and there's this couple. They were on vacation from, I think they were from, or they were going to Florida, but it was like the week of the hurricane. So they were like, we're not sure if we're going there anymore or not. And I just got a chance to kind of talk to them about books and just Savannah. And that's one of the things I love about doing these events. And I'm excited about the Author Expo for. Plus, there's coffee there, and I'm just a sucker for coffee, especially good coffee, which we have plenty of here in Savannah.
Okay, so little update. I tried to get a hold of Brian, and the phone call did not go through. So just kind of leave this on the table just in case.
Yeah.
Because it would be cool to be able to talk to him about Daybreak, and I agree with you though, man. I think it's a lot of fun doing these events. This is one of the reasons why I like to set the events up. And to host the events, because that's exactly why I want to meet other people and I want to talk with folks about, what they've got going on. It's the same thing with the radio show.
Yeah.
I mean, it all overlaps. You're talking about the podcast being an extension of instead of blogging.
Yeah.
It's a way to communicate with the listeners and the readers.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for me. Like I enjoy talking with other creative people and kind of giving them a platform to talk about their stuff.
Yeah.
And at the same time I learn a lot from them, and I have a lot of fun talking with them about whatever.
There's the phone ringing.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Hello hold on one second.
Oh, you good.
Let's see. Hold
as
on
Adam
one second.
tries to
Can you
figure
hear
this out.
me? Can you hear me, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got you live on the air just to let you know.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in today, and I've got Josh Vasquez with me, the Savannah Zombie Novel series author I was telling you about yesterday, and so this is so cool, man. I appreciate it. Like this, everybody. Let me just tell you a little backstory here, Brian. Thank you so much. Yesterday, you were doing your author signing at Odin and Sons for your series Daybreak, which has been out for over 10 years, right? And,
yeah, about that.
Yeah, and then you have, I guess, the new series on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it just came out on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then in this show, my book has zombies in it, and on the show, and they're essentially zombies, but they decided to call them ghoulies. I guess every show has to have their sort of brand walkers or whatever they want.
Everybody's going to have their own take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yeah. So these are called ghoulies on the show. And on the show, the one other thing that changed too, I mean, they're essentially bloodthirsty or brain-thirsty monsters, but they also have the ability to repeat a single line over and over again. So they say whatever was the last thing they thought about.
Yeah.
Right, so each one says something really kind of stupid or inane, like there's a sale on yoga pants at the mall, and they just repeat it over and over again as they wander.
It's so crazy because I hadn't looked at it, and then yesterday I caught like the first 10 minutes of an episode or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool, but I'd actually picked the book up from Neighborhood Comics, and Raymond had suggested to me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because I love indie stuff. I love talking to indie people and people that are doing their own thing. And so just a little background here. You're a professor at SCAD, right?
Right.
And you have several self-published works, right?
Yep.
And I have to admit, everybody, I was having a moment. I walked in and I go to Odin and Sons to buy my comics, and I go to Neighborhood Comics, and they had a huge crowd of people in there. So I had like an anxiety attack right there.
Right. Well,
I felt so socially awkward.
No, I felt bad because I was like, I'm always very like, hey, how's it going? Hey, super loud. And then you were like, there were so many people in there. Yeah, I don't blame you. It was just like, it was crazy because it was also Halloween Comics Fest or free comics.
Free comic day.
There was a lot going on.
Oh my gosh, and it was so weird because I was like, I think actually the first thing I told you was, I'm sorry, I'm having social anxiety right now. It's like I was like, oh my gosh, what an impression,
Oh, that's fine. Well, because I do with a lot of comic book artists, and everybody has it's hard to switch into that mode when you're signing books or when you're doing some sort of public appearance. Discussion. And so you end up going into this kind of like, oh man, like I don't know how I'm gonna handle this crowd, or you go to Comic Cons and things like that. It's just insane.
What's really crazy, Brian, is that I actually used to do a ton of coverages for the Comic Cons and stuff like that, and I'm used to big crowds. It's just that I wasn't I wasn't expecting that many people when I went in there, because I've been going to the Odin Sun since they opened up, and I was like, I love meeting indie authors and stuff like that. But you were a gracious host with that. I actually, I actually wanted to pick up a copy for Josh. And
which I greatly appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Oh, good.
Yeah, we love the little sketches too, man. Did you design that interior cover to be like that so you could draw the character? Because it's so cool.
That kind of just started happening.
Yeah.
Where I tried to place the character into that environment. I wish I could have. I didn't really think about that in advance. It was just meant to be kind of sort of a dead space, title page area.
I mean, it totally fits. And I was like, this is genius. This is like really
awesome. Good.
So it's like one of those things that just kind of perked like that.
Really, I'm glad you caught me too, because it's just like fun meeting people who hadn't read the book or weren't familiar with the show. Yeah. Now I have this like kind of thing about the show is very different than the book. Like you said, the book is very independent and kind of alternative and very quiet. It's a very quiet. You're just following one character around, and the show, they really expanded the whole universe into a large, lots of huge cast and a lot going on. And I wonder if there's going to be fans of the book and fans of the or fans of the show that don't quite. I like the
mesh
show
up together or mash up together.
Yeah, like I have a lot of people telling me, "Oh, the show's not like the book."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of how things are sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like so many people are used to that though now. Like we just like it's like a given thing. The book is never the same as the movie. Even when like the storylines are close, like a lot of times like you'll go back and like it's just completely different. So
yeah, and I think like when I originally got a call from that director, he was like, he told me he wanted to expand the whole universe, and I kind of was on board just because I thought, well, this is, if you want this to be a longer story or larger story, yeah, you have to introduce new ideas and new things. And I was really excited to work with, like, just to collaborate with someone on it, because I could only do, I could do what I could do, but I thought, man, it'd be really fun to see what somebody else does with it, how somebody takes my baby and kind of turns it into something different,
Yeah. Can I ask, like, as like a creator, like how easy was it for you to like hand over your baby like that? Because I feel like for me, like it'd give me so much anxiety.
Yeah. Well, the book had been out for a few years. Like I had done it had been collected in kind of in like small run or kind of serialized. And then by the time he found that book, it had been collected and it had been around, for a year, and I was kind of removed from it. I'd finished it, and so it was close to my heart, but
yeah,
I just thought, well,
it's like let's give it a new life type thing, right?
I was like, what could go wrong here?
Yeah.
Even if it stinks, it'll still be fun to see what they do. And then, over the years, it kind of sat, and they optioned it every year, but I didn't think anything would ever come of it. And then all of a sudden, he's like, hey, Netflix is interested. We're looking at locations now in New Mexico. And it happened really, really fast.
Yeah.
So when I went out there in February to do a cameo, I didn't even know I was doing a cameo. I thought I was just going to visit the set. And they ended up having a surprise kind of cameo for me.
That's awesome.
But when I saw the amount of money that was being put into this, it was like, oh, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. The Raymond was talking about the series, because I love zombie stuff. We've been first hour or so we've been talking. Josh and I've been talking about just writing and that kind of thing, and we're both big fans of zombies. And one of the things, and I've only read maybe like the first 15 or 20 pages of the little graphic novel, but I like the first person perspective of it.
Yeah.
And it's a little different than, because you see a lot of first-person books and you see a lot of first-person games and stuff like that, but you don't see a whole lot of first-person comics where you kind of run through the role as, like, you're part of the story.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, like, cool take on, like a comic book.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a huge like hook for me. Was that kept me really engaged, really interested. Like I've been doing a lot of comics, and I almost started to feel like it was getting formulaic for me. Like I was doing a lot of commercial sort of licensed comics for Nickelodeon, and this was a challenge. It kind of popped into my head. I was like, well, maybe this could be like almost a video game experience where you're on the adventure.
Yeah,
and I just started,
yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it felt like.
doing it. Yeah, and it was like the amount of problem solving that it took was like really interesting to me. And all of a sudden I had to just like, it just really tested me, it's really fun. And I never got tired of it. And that just really propelled me to do more and more and more. I'm like, oh man, I wonder what would happen if, what if you had to get stuck under a boat, or how would you get out of this? Or what if he separates? Like, what if you get separated from the main character? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Let me do a station ID real quick.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna take a little bit of a break. WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host. And our special guests today are Josh Vasquez, who is the author of the Savannah Zombie Novel series, and Brian Ralph, who is the author of Daybreak and other. I saw that you have a couple other things over there too that I want to check out. But this is Sebastian, my son. He plays heavy metal music, so he's going to play a riff for us real quick.
Cool.
Yeah, that's my son Sebastian. He's got his band called Krieger, and so he's a regular on the show. He's like my co-host type. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's been playing for like the last 3.5 years or so. But
great.
Yeah, it was so cool to meet you, and then just seeing I already had a copy of it, and I wanted to get Josh a copy. What did you think, Josh, when you got it?
I was pretty excited about it because, like, to be honest, like I found out about your book maybe a couple years back because so like my books, like the names of them are A New Death and A New Darkness, and then I had planned on writing the third one as A New Daybreak, and I think in the process of like Googling that title to see if it was like there or not,
right,
and I came across yours, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I need to rethink Daybreak.
Okay. Oh man, well sorry, but you could have used it too.
No, it's cool. It's yeah, but that's I came across the book, and like it's always kind of like been in the back of my mind and all that, and like Adam just happened to drop one in my lap today, so I was like, yes, sweet, Christmas is early.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited to check your work out as well. I used to read a ton of sort of apocalypse books or zombie books, and I dropped out of it for a while, but now I'm sort of back interested in I think everybody always goes back to The Walking Dead. I was super into The Walking Dead around, the comic around about the time I was also beginning my book, and I just watched a ton of zombie movies, but then I was kind of tapped out. After I did Daybreak, I kind of tapped out for a while.
Yeah.
But I'm back. I'd love to get back into it. I just think there's such a great, there's always a challenge in terms of problem solving. Like, how do I get my characters into a situation, and how do I get them out?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be psyched to check your stuff out.
Cool.
What's your favorite zombie movie, Brian?
Well, the original, the mall. What's the mall? Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Yeah,
that was
the
a good
original
one.
Dawn of the Dead, and actually the remake of Dawn of the Dead, I really liked as well.
That was a good one too.
It's so a lot of Daybreak also happens in a mall, which is just, I just think it's such a fun fixed location, and those are definitely my favorites. But in college, my roommates and I just every weekend we just watch as many zombie movies as we can.
Yeah.
I forget the one where there's underwater zombie. It's like an Italian.
Are you talking about where he fights the shark?
Yeah. The one
Yeah,
where he fights the shark.
That's Dario Argento's Zombie, which is like the like affiliated sequel to Dawn of the Dead. Like
yeah.
so like
Right.
like Romero did like his version of it, but then
Yeah.
Dario did like this director's cut version of it for the
Right.
European release.
Yeah.
And it's got like a different soundtrack. The scenes are they're edited slightly differently, so it's like a more darker, realistic tone.
Right.
And then he did Zombie, which is the one where famously a zombie fights a shark.
Exactly. That's what it was.
Underwater.
Not Sharknado.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have not
And,
seen that one yet, actually.
Yeah. It's classic.
It's a classic scene. You could probably just pull up that shark fighting scene.
Yeah. Shark versus zombie.
In my comic though, you never actually see a full zombie. You see hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
and you see
noticed that.
feet.
I noticed that. It was like you almost, it's like you're kind of, it's on the peripheral of all the.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it was originally, I just felt like it wasn't in my wheelhouse to draw gore, and I wanted the zombies to help propel the characters along, but I didn't necessarily. I never could wrap my mind around. Well, what are they going to look like? How are they? How do I cartoon a grotesque zombie?
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought, well, I'm just going to keep them always one step ahead of the zombies, and I'll address it some other time. And then it became a thing. Like, hey, how can I still have this be suspenseful without ever actually showing the monster? You know? And I just thought, once I show the monster, everybody's gonna be like, oh, that's stupid looking. That's the classic.
Oh wow, that actually, I think that's a great workaround around that kind of plot problem.
That's a huge horror thing too. It's like we're always more afraid of the thing that we can't see as opposed to the thing we can.
Yeah.
And then when I talked to the director, that was his first thing. He's like, well, we're gonna have to show the zombies at some point. So that's our first change.
Slightly different medium.
I get it. Yeah, he's like, the fans of this are not gonna just allow you to not show the monsters. And I was like, okay, I get it. So,
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm at is it hard to hear me? I'm at like a Halloween trunk or treat thing with my daughter.
No, you're fine.
You're good. You can hear a little bit of it in the background, but no, it's okay. Yeah. It's not like super noticeable.
Would it be unprofessional if I just called you right back? I'm gonna try to get in.
Yeah,
there,
no, totally.
Okay.
I've got the phone hooked up, so just go ahead and call me. We got about 20 minutes left for the show anyway.
Okay.
So
yeah, hey, let me get her signed up and then I'll call you right back.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Okay.
Brian. So yeah, that's a really cool. Like, I started reading in the comic because, like I said, I think his name's Randall over at Neighborhood Comics was talking about it. And, I'm a big indie fan. Like, I love to support other indie authors and comic book creators and stuff like that. And it was just so cool because here he is in Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
He's a professor at SCAD. And I was like, oh, yeah, I just picked it up. And then next thing I know, I saw Odin & Sons was doing a signing with him.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be on the show. I was like, oh, I got to go pick up a copy of this.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a last-second decision to ask him to be on the show.
Yeah.
Because we were going to be doing our Halloween episode today.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I just got to go for it. I just got to try to ask him if he'll be on the show.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
It worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
So he's a super nice guy. Nice guy. But yeah, I was, I know we were talking before the show, I was having like a lot of social anxiety from that incident of just having a big crowd. I usually am okay, but I don't know what it was. I just
you probably weren't expecting like
I wasn't
that
expecting
big of a
it,
but like it was like he said, like there's like a ton of stuff going on.
It
like
was
free
just
comic book day.
Yeah. It's just like my brain went haywire.
Yeah,
and I was like, and it was so funny because, like I said, that was the first thing I said to him. Was like, I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of social anxiety right now.
Yeah,
that's the first thing I said to this guy. Like, I'm thinking, like, the guy's probably like, red flag, ding, ding, danger, danger, danger. And I was like,
comic book nerd.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I was really embarrassed. I was really embarrassed by it. I mean, honestly, I was very embarrassed by it because, I have to do a lot of public speaking and I have to do a lot of public appearances. Not that I'm a public guy or whatever, but just being out and doing events and stuff like that. And then, meeting people, writing articles and interviewing people, doing the radio show. I'm used to public events. It's just, I think what it was is I wasn't expecting it. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a crowd.
Kind of like how I wasn't expecting you to put me on the spot to talk on the radio just by myself for a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's like I could talk for hours just myself, but you're like, hey, can you just talk on the radio for a minute? What? Abort.
Yeah. Like, danger, Will Rogers, danger. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought it was cool, especially that's one of the things I like doing too is meeting new people and connecting people.
Yeah.
You know, here you are, the Savannah Zombie Novel author.
Yeah.
Here he is, Daybreak. He, you know, it's about zombies
Mm-hmm.
and survival. You know, post-apocalyptic type stuff. So,
Yeah.
such a cool little thing. Hopefully he'll be able to give us a call back
Yeah.
and
Which,
we'll
like,
chit chat some more.
When I first like began like the whole like publishing process and all that, like I made sure like there wasn't like any other like zombie, you know, based stuff here.
Oh yeah,
Because like my original tagline was Savannah's only zombie novel,
yeah. Well, you know, here's something else too. Like,
but it's
this-
not anymore.
the Savannah Coven.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought, oh, Coven's a great. You know, like I love the underworld stuff.
Yeah.
I love those movies, and I'm a big movie fan too. Very visual. I'm a very visual person.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to storytelling, I'm like, I have to be able to see it in my head.
Yeah.
And Savannah Coven.
Mhm.
So I started writing this little historical fiction, like, oh, what's the lore in Savannah about vampires?
Yeah.
Oh, there really isn't any. Still isn't any. I'm the one writing it.
Yeah.
But there's a series called the Savannah Coven, and it's about a bunch of witches.
Yeah.
And I'd never read it, but I think it's like some sort of romance type series or
Mm-hmm.
something kind of similar to romance or whatever. But I was like, well, I can't call it the Savannah Coven series anymore.
Yeah.
So I changed it over to the Savannah Vampire Novel series.
Yeah.
You know, kind of taken right off your book, taking
Mhm.
a page out of your book. And so I've used that, but I really dig the name Blood Thrasher.
Yeah.
Like I'm really digging that. You know, the Devils and the Metal tribute to heavy metal was, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I like how your titles were like a series of like, okay, well, here you go.
Yeah. Something
Boom,
to kind
boom,
of
boom.
tie them together.
I think you should do a new Daybreak. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's different enough.
Well, it originally was
And
A New Dawn.
He just gave you permission.
He did on the air, so
So,
that's
dude,
that's
you got
legit.
the, you know, I mean, it came from the creator
Yeah.
himself. So you got permission to use that name.
Yeah, but it was originally A New Dawn, but in researching titles, like that
Here
was
he
one
is.
that was already taken.
Hey, Brian, you there?
Wait for this guy. Hey, it's Brian. I'm back.
Hey, I just had to let you know you're live on air. So
Good, yeah. And I'm about to hoist my daughter into a inflatable slide.
Nice.
oh, cool. Yeah, we
You know,
Josh and I are both
multitasking.
parents. Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
it is when you're a parent, right? You
Mhm.
gotta, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You got one foot in the zombie world that you're talking about, and then you got your kids you're trying to feed or whatever. You know?
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. That's one of the things that Josh and I were talking about earlier about making time to write and create, you know, being a parent.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
working
yeah.
full time. I mean, like you're a professor at SCAD. You work. I mean, I know professors work a lot of hours.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard too when you talk about the creative energy that like I put a ton of energy into my classes. There's a ton of
Mhm.
like working on solutions with students, and then you come home and you're like, how am I gonna have the energy to do my own stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a challenge. That's why I think the project, whatever it is, it has to be something that you're super. Go ahead. It has to be something you're like super engaged in or super interested to do.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just you'd rather just zone out and watch TV.
Yeah.
And that book, the Daybreak book, just was that project for me where I was up at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, like excited to work on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, and now, you know, as you get older, you're less likely to want to pull an all-nighter. You're just like, what?
Yeah. especially doing stuff with the kids. I
Yeah.
mean, like literally that will just, you know, you're
Yeah.
kind of drained. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
how am I
To
gonna
sit down.
how am I
yeah,
gonna
to
write
sit down
or
and-
draw another panel or
Yeah.
Right.
I've
right.
been pushing myself this month with the Inktober. I've never done Inktober before, and I'm
Yeah.
doing the NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month challenge next month.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I've
yeah.
never done that before, and I'm like, okay, I need to break out of my creative, you know, rut. I need to kind of like push myself. So
Sure.
I've been drawing and inking a picture every day, and
Yeah.
just to get out of that, you know, routine of hey, you know, so
That's the like having not a deadline, but having people that you're responsible to, even if it's just a community of other artists or writers who are trying to do the same thing you are. It could be just that thing that you need in order to propel you on a project. Like,
mm-hmm.
you know, hey, I could go to bed right now, or I could, you know, sort of do what I said I was going to do and get this project done, or get this piece done, or, you know, upload that thing that I said I was going to upload.
Mhm.
So I really think that's a cool exercise, the Inktober, or what is it called, the National
Yeah, the
Novel Writing?
NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month.
Yeah, right. I think it's a great exercise.
I
And
think
even
what you said.
like you said, even if it's not ultimately something that you collect or print, it's you break out of a rut, you try something different.
I think I like what you said too, because like I've been using that mental tactic to say, okay, well, I'm writing this and I don't want to let the reader, my 2 or 3 readers down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I don't want to let those folks that are like, hey man, when are you putting your new thing out?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's been helping me kind of drive, like say, okay, I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah, that was a huge thing for me too. When I was trying to, I did Daybreak, and this is back before social media, and I was blogging. I would put a couple new pages every Monday on this blog, and I had 1 or 2 trusted friends that were looking at it, and I knew, oh man, Tom really wants to see that comic. I better get it done.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah.
That kind of like
kind of gives you some
maybe
juice to push it.
camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge help for really sort of getting over that initial sort of where I could have stuck with it, or I could have bailed, and I ended up ultimately sticking with it because I had those friends.
I totally agree. And yesterday, you had asked me about the Savannah Quill thing, like on my sweatshirt, and I'm just gonna give you the skinny on it because I felt bad because I was like literally just having a little brain meltdown.
Sure. Well, hey, it didn't show because I was like, I didn't know, I wouldn't have known if you hadn't said it. So.
Oh wow!
You did well.
I was just telling Josh how embarrassed I was. I was like, the first thing out of my mouth was, I'm having social anxiety.
No worries.
But anyway, the Savannah Quill is I started it in May of 2016, and Josh has been one of the main people that's been part of it ever since. And we had a couple of conventions. We've had a lot of meet and greets. We do the Books and Brews in Savannah over at Southbound Brewing Company. And we're doing that's to help raise money for the Ronald McDonald House. And we're doing the Savannah Authors Expo at Savannah Coffee Roasters on Saturday, November the 9th. So the Savannah Quill is really just like kind of like we're talking right now, you, me, and Josh.
Yeah.
Where creative people just get together, they do their thing, and we talk to each other, we help each other out, that kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're doing it's going to be a free, open to the public event over at the Savannah Coffee Roasters.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to hit you up offline about that.
Yeah, send me a message now that we're on Instagram. That'd be great. I'd love to be a part of that.
But we, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was telling Josh, like, how this kind of unfolded. I literally got the comic book a couple weeks ago by going to Neighborhood Comics. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Raymond had recommended it. And I started reading it. And, life happens. And, you get so far in or whatever. And then the next thing I know, I saw that Odin and Sons was going to have you there signing books. And I was like, oh, I want to meet you. And
cool.
Literally, it was like before I walked in, this is when I was like, I'm just going to ask you if you would come on the show today. I mean, it was like that last second type thing because I was like, Josh and I are going to be doing a Halloween special, talking about, writing and stuff like that. And I thought what you were doing was pretty cool. And I was like, psh. And then boom, boom, boom. Next thing I know, here you are. So thanks a lot.
Awesome. Well, good. I'm glad I made it happen. Sorry, I'm at a Halloween event.
Oh, you're great, man. That actually, I love this because it shows people like, hey, we're real people.
Yeah.
We're not just keyboard warriors.
Oh, I know, right? It's like people have day jobs, people have kids, and it's like the balancing act. I think is maybe people. Now with social media too, you see a lot of that. You're like, well, I've got a cat and I've got, or whatever, I've got problems or family and whatever. I think it's good to show people a little bit of the full range of the human behind the art, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. You got we've only got a couple minutes left, Brian. You got the new show on Netflix. Can you talk about your other books too? Because I was looking, you got like this huge, like it's like a hardbound I can't remember the name of it. It had like a robot on it.
Oh yeah, I've got a kids. Well, I don't know if it's not necessarily for. I didn't think it was for kids, but it kind of turned out to be a kids book.
Yeah.
Well, it's a comic strip I did for a magazine called Giant Robot, and I always had the back page of this magazine for years. And I had the back page of this magazine for years, and I would just do a comic. I would do a comic for it, and anyway, it turned into a book. They collected into this hardcover book, Drawn and Quarterly, the same people who published the Daybreak book. And then I've got another book. I did this like sort of wordless adventure story for kids. The Daybreak book was probably the most ambitious in terms of ongoing story or heft of story and heft of emotions. But yeah, I have all those books, and everybody's asking me, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? It's hard. You know how long it takes to do stuff. It's
Oh yeah.
As soon as I've had situations where people have read the book right in front of me at the table.
Oh wow.
And they're like, okay, what are you doing next?
Oh
I'm
wow.
like, well, it takes a minute. It takes a minute.
You're like, do you realize how many hours was in that?
Right.
and
Yeah,
then
like,
not only that, like the work, it's like, afterwards, it's like,
Yeah,
publishing
like-
it, and
It took
Yeah.
a minute to do. Yeah.
that was so cool.
And then I think I'm doing a signing as well at Neighborhood Comics on November 6th.
Oh, awesome! That's like the same week of the Savannah Author Expo.
Yeah. Hey, I told them, because I just done the signing at Odin and Sons, I said, well, maybe I could do a lecture. I have a ton of behind the scenes photos from the set
Mhm.
Yeah.
that I would love to share and talk about that experience.
Oh
So I think
yeah.
I'm gonna turn it into more of a.
We're doing panels that Saturday.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'll contact you offline and we'll talk about that. Because I would love, because Josh and I are going to do a horror panel,
Yeah.
and
Oh man. Yeah.
I think
I'd
that
love
would
to-
be.
I'd love to check it out. That'd be
Oh
great.
yeah, that'd be so cool, and it's going to be free and open to the public. So there's no cost associated. People can come in. The only thing that we're
Okay.
asking people is to patronize Savannah Coffee Roasters while they're there.
Yeah.
But
Sure,
there's no
hey,
cost for anybody. But
that fuels most of this stuff anyway, right?
heck yeah, the coffee. Brian, where can people check out your stuff?
Well, the publisher of Daybreak is Drawn and Quarterly, a Canadian company, and they're just a really great
Mhm.
supporter. They've published all my stuff, and I've been friends with the publisher since for the past 20 years.
Oh wow.
So I would say if you go to drawnandquarterly.com, you'll find the books, and or Odin and Sons will have it, and they'll have signed copies, and Neighborhood Comics will have signed copies as well.
Okay, cool. Everybody, you're listening to the Adam Messer Show here on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings with Community Radio with Global Soul. Our special guests today have been Josh Vasquez from the Savannah Zombie Novel series. Josh, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, man, it's always fun.
It's been a ton of fun. And Brian Ralph from well known for Daybreak, I guess now with the Netflix and all that stuff. So, but you're a professor here at SCAD too. So
That's
like
right.
people know you around town for maybe for some different reasons, I guess, or whatever. But
Yeah, that's right. I'm looking forward to talking to people about what they like about the show, or what they feel hopefully makes it to a season 2 and the universe keeps expanding.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for being on the show today, Brian, too. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
man.
it.
All right, everybody. Stay tuned because Savannah at Night is up next.
This is WRUU-LP